Tetairoa McMillan or T-Mac, definitely not Tet McMillan, as he has clarified on several occasions now. Really fun player, really fun prospect. Like, when you go back to his draft profile, it was so obvious on tape that he was going to be the kind of player that we would be excited about by now. Really good footwork, really good speed for his size, very similar to kind of Drake London in the way that he moves. And you add all this on to the way that Bryce Young finished 2024. Like, do you just think that Tech can completely unlock Bryce Young to the next level, or is it just complete belief in T-Mac that he is really talented?
Well, I do believe that Bryce Young, it could be in store for a better than anticipated season. He finished the year last year very well, showed us the rushing upside and the rushing production that maybe we didn't really bake into a Bryce Young profile like we should have. And just a comfort level in the Dave Canales offense, and Dave Canales just having continual improvement with the quarterbacks in his system. But with McMillan, it's a player that we were sort of unwavering at fantasy points as our wide receiver one in this class. There was some time in the community where people were projecting McMillan to sort of fall in the first round. We had that sort of period of time. I think it was just I don't even know why. It was like sort of like prospect fatigue with him. He's been so good for so long. He's a really special athlete. And I think people don't really take that into account, where you talked about straight line speed. McMillan will always have a solid 40-yard dash, but he's never a guy that's like a burner. But it's the body control, the ability to make spectacular catches, his catch radius. He's just a target magnet. It's a 6'5", 220-pounder who has the ability to move around formations and be a mega target earner. So for me, McMillan, I added a ton in Dynasty, and I was drafting a lot in early drafts. Now you're having to pay as he moves up. So I think it's worth it. And we have seen Bryce Young with a tendency to like hyper target his number one target. Oftentimes Adam Thielen was the beneficiary of like some very highly targeted weeks. We also have a sample size of Dave Canales with Mike Evans that year, getting tremendous production out of a big outside wide receiver. So for me, McMillan not only projects as the wide receiver one in the offense, but I think he could be the offensive focal point. Not enough is being brought up to the fact that I think Rico Dowdle could cut into what Chuba Hubbard does, make that a little bit more of a 60-40 with Dowdle receiving a lot more of the targets out of the backfield, the threat of ETN, and then you have all these other players that could sort of cannibalize one another. I think they put together a decent core around McMillan, but McMillan will be the player week in, week out. The defenses are going to have to account for, because I think Carolina is going to game plan for. And I think when we are projecting him, there's some really smart people out there on multiple sites, including our own, that are maybe giving him a little bit too much of a conservative projection when it comes to total targets. I think we're looking at 140 plus, with the potential that he could be a 150 target player this year. And we've also had a huge trend of wide receivers hitting in year one. We've had 4 out of the last 5 seasons where a rookie wide receiver has finished as a top 6 scorer in PPR at the wide receiver position. If somebody in this class does it, I think it's McMillan. And I want to have a lot of exposure to him these final 3.5 weeks.
So you mentioned like you think that the ceiling's kind of like 150 targets. Now, we know last year, like Malik Neighbors saw even more than that, but they were bad targets. Like the quarterbacks he had thrown him the ball were horrendous, and he still ended up finishing with 109 receptions, I think it was, the year before. Puka Nacua had finished like in that kind of similar range. Do you think that there's a chance with T-Mac that he can end up being the latest rookie in the last 3 years to break the wide receiver receptions record?
I mean, I'm here for it, but I think if we put that on him, we're going to be disappointed. How about we just take, something like, give me 95 receptions for McMillan, and I'll be very satisfied. I also think that he has touchdown upside. He's the kind of player that can really win in the red zone. So unlike Nacua and Neighbors, maybe he could sacrifice 10 receptions, but have the ability to sort of hit at that very high level, because he ends up catching more touchdown passes. Has also the ability to put up like a 2 touchdown catch cut type game if it's going that way for him. Just some of the tape from Arizona, it's just these spectacular catches. And I think it can translate to the NFL level because he does have that impressive size, impressive catch radius. And one thing that always resonated with me, Jed Fish, who has a ton of NFL experience, coached under Bill Belichick. He's the coach at Washington now, but had McMillan at Arizona. And last year when he was at Washington, he talked up McMillan as a prospect, and he said it's the best athlete he's ever been around. And then he clarified it where he talked about things like the body control, where McMillan's almost like an NBA type athlete, where he's just so athletic in that sense, where I think people don't necessarily appreciate just how spectacular some of these catches could be. So for me, it's a range of the draft that's given us a bunch of draft winners. We're chasing the trend of rookie wide receiver ones, the fantastic draft capital, and the clear wide receiver one role in the offense. I mean, to me, he's sort of a no-brainer player you want to have exposure to in all formats this year.
Yeah, and we've got loads more players, so I do want to get to them. But just first, on Sleeper, he goes at pick 59, which is 20 spots lower than on Underdog. Obviously, Underdog is quite a wide receiver heavy platform. But on Yahoo, he goes at 79th overall. How high ahead of ADP would you be willing to bring McMillan in those kind of redraft, regular home league drafts that people are getting underway with?
So it's always an interesting one when you're trying to give somebody ESPN, Yahoo, sleeper type advice, where it depends on sort of the room you get into. Where are the people around you just going to follow what's on the screen as to when they need to take their guys, or are they going to be looking at maybe a different set of rankings? And I tend to lean more towards people have more good information sources available to them these days, and don't necessarily lean into the old abusing the default rankings articles that we used to see 15 years ago. I think that the fantasy managers are way more educated and way more into it than like 15 years ago. So I would say if you want McMillan, don't trust the ADP in Yahoo, don't trust the ADP in ESPN. I have him ranked somewhere close to like around pick number 40. He'd be a top 42 player for me in regular PPR. And I feel like taking him in the fourth round of FFPC, maybe even the third round of NFFC is viable right now. So for me, it depends on your league, but if you think you can, I certainly would stand on my head if I got him after pick 70, like in some of these leagues, but I would say that's wishful thinking. Go ahead and get him. You don't need to take him as highly as underdog drafters do or FFPC drafters in a lot of home leagues, but you certainly want to take him well ahead of ADP if you want to ensure you get him.